Hey team, thanks for joining me. I'm really excited to bring you the Fit3d Additional Measurement Section. Many people wouldn't know this section exists, but it's the perfect data set for those more astute trainers or those in sport performance or rehab. Now, I've already logged in at fit3d.com, and as soon as you log in, it'll take you to your wellness report. Keep in mind the current view I'm on is a computer, not a phone or tablet, which may be slightly different. Once you're logged in, go to the top left of the screen, click on the three horizontal line icon, click on Scan History. Images will come up of all your scans. Click on one of the images, and in the bottom right of the screen, you're just going to click on Download Measurements. Now, you need to have access to Excel for this. Once you click on Download Measurements, it'll automatically download many measurements into Excel. Now, this section, I've currently highlighted a few things in advance. So the most recent scan will appear up the top and the first scan will down the bottom. They will be all in order of each scan you've had. The main metrics to start off here, they already appear in your main Fit3d body scan report. However, I've just highlighted some of the additional measurements that people may find helpful in the decision-making process, whether it be sport performance, weight or body fat loss, or rehab. I think this section in particular, this additional measurement section, is really where you can gain the 1%ers in terms of improving your training or nutrition regime decisions. Now, as I scroll across, one of the first things I've got highlighted here is the knee circumference 2 inches above the kneecap. So what we're looking at here on the left is just showing the circumference of the left leg, and this is the right. Now, what we find, especially with lower limb rehab, if you've had a knee surgery or pretty much any lower limb surgery, that most of that muscle wasting in the thigh is going to happen on the lower part of that quadricep. So if you only look at the Fit3d thigh circumference, that circumference is taking really high up the thigh. So it may not capture some of the muscle wasting or muscle development that's occurring. So if you are doing any rehab, I really would encourage you to look at the metrics that do appear in this 2 inches above the kneecap section. In this particular example, it's just showing that the left knee, the left circumference is bigger than the right. As we scroll across, we start to look at volume. So the volume metrics can be really handy to correlate with the circumference measurements that you're seeing in the main data platform. Now, if you have a client that you're wanting to lose weight and body fat percentage, that's their initial goal, then ideally for health, you want most of that loss to become around this torso. So I've highlighted the torso volume. In this particular example, they went from 58.6 kilos to 49.4, just under 10 kilos they lost from their torso alone. At the same time, they lost volume from their arms. So the first scan, remember, is down the bottom, and then the most recent at the top. So they lost volume from their arms. At the same time, they lost volume from their legs. So this section can be used as well as the metrics from the main data platform, and you can educate your client to say, hey, this is great, we're losing a lot from your torso, where all the scary visceral fat is, and the fat that leads to cardiovascular disease and multiple other health problems. But at the same time, you've been losing a lot from your arms and legs, and we want to stop that. So you may, in terms of the decision-making process, you may add in some additional weight training or strength training for the arms and legs, or you may be altering the amount of sets or reps or weight lifted to help maintain or grow the volume in the arms and legs. This particular view for the weight loss or body fat loss client is also handy once they've achieved their goal. Then you can use this section to help develop new goals, which may be to do with muscle growth. When we're looking at the left versus right, the other scenario is if someone's got an injury or needs symmetry for their sport or in rehab. So I'll come back over here. I had highlighted in this section here just the biceps circumference. So if we come across the biceps left here versus the biceps right over here, and that's just the circumference alone. Then if we correlate that, if we come back over to the left arm volume versus the right arm volume. So I've got the left side in blue and the right side in orange. Now, if we scroll down, I've just created my own graphs. So you can really quickly create graphs. If you want to show your client a visual, you just purely in Excel, go to Insert, go to Graph, and you can just generate these graphs within a couple of seconds. So what this is showing us, because I've just quickly generated these graphs, the first scan is actually on the right over here, and the most recent one's on the left. Now you will see that in this particular person, the volume of their arm every single time was bigger. Blue being the left was bigger on the left, and orange being the right was always bigger on the left compared to the right. And this matches exactly the same as what you're seeing in the bicep circumference. So if this person had had a recent arm or shoulder injury, it is likely that a lot of muscle wasting can occur in that arm. And it's just a way that you can use this to motivate your client to then try and get their arms more symmetrical. Or if you have a very one-sided related sport, something like tennis or something, this section is a nice way to use both the arm circumferences combined with the volume to make sure that the difference between the two sides isn't getting bigger over periods of time. So in some sports, you're guaranteed you're going to have one side more developed than the other. It just might be that sport, like things like hockey, golf, tennis, badminton, it's one-sided sports. Your one side's always going to be bigger, but you just want to make sure that for performance and injury prevention, that gap between the two sides doesn't continually increase all the time. I've also at the same time used this torso volume graph. So again, you can easily create these graphs for clients. The first scan is on the right here, the most recent one's on the left, just for this quickly generated report. If you are obviously doing a presentation to a high performance program or to some other decision makers, you may want to just recreate the order of these graphs properly so that the most recent scan result is down the bottom and the first scan result is at the top, and then the graphs would be in order of time instead of having to think about it in the reverse. So yeah, this is where this volume section come in really handy for both those wanting symmetry, those looking at exercise rehab, and those wanting to make sure that the client is losing or gaining weight in the right places. Some other metrics that you can get in this section, if you have any fighters, so martial arts, boxing, etc., it will do a length, so shoulder to wrist length. Now this does rely on your client standing in that relaxed position with their arms straight every single time for consistency. And what this could be handy for is really if you just had a couple of fighters and you wanted to see what is their reach, what is the difference between reach, or for sports such as rugby, if you're wanting to know, well, who's got the longest reach for a line out, or Aussie rules, who can jump up and grab the ball up high, then this could tell you who in your team has the longest reach. Other things you can look at, there is the option to look at leg length. Now, leg length, they have in here inseam left versus inseam right. So this is taken from the inside of the ankle bone up to where it meets the inside of the crotch. Now, the problem with the inseam left is it can be quite dependent on what underwear you wear. So if you have some baggier underwear, then it may be that the leg length is showing as shorter on that occasion. It also does rely on you standing in the same position on the foot plates every single time with your knees straight. So it's just something to be aware of when you are using this leg length scenario. The other one is the outseam. So this is taken from the outside ankle bone up to the hip bone on the outside of the leg. This is probably the more valuable one if you're looking at leg length. So some people may use the leg length in combination with volume of left versus right leg, in combination with circumference measurements of the thigh, the lower thigh, and the calf. And if you're getting a client that has repetitive injuries on one side of the body, or they've had surgeries, this may give you some clues as to why that may be, and it may then prompt you to do something about it. So that's the main additional metrics that I'd personally have a look at. As you can see, it's a lot more valuable once you've had several scans, and then you can look for patterns over time. On just a one-off Fit3d body scan, if there's differences between left and right, I wouldn't be making significant training decisions based on that. My advice would be, look for patterns over months or years, and then you can see if any discrepancies develop when there's injuries or at different phases in the training regime. If anyone has any questions about any of that, please feel free to shoot me an email, peter@healthandfitnesstesting.nz.